Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're doing something really fun. We're going to demystify how the economy actually works on a practical level. We're zooming all the way out from the literal coins jingling in our pockets to the massive, complex forces of national inflation. It's an energetic, structured look at the absolute lifeblood of our modern world. Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever just stopped, looked at a regular currency note in your hand and thought, wait, what actually gives this piece of paper its value? I mean, it's literally just ink and paper, right? We all kind of assume money has this inherent physical worth, but as you'll see, the reality of modern economics is way more fascinating. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll answer what is money, actually. Then we'll look at the 4 functions of money, followed by measuring the money supply, and finally, we'll get into the mechanics of inflation.
Section 1. What is money, actually? From metal to trust.
You know, there's this brilliantly simple yet profound definition by Professor Walker. He famously said, money is what money does. And this perfectly illustrates what we call token money. Think about a modern 10 rupee coin. The legally dictated face value, the amount you use at the store, is actually vastly higher than the market melt value of the base metals inside it. Like if you literally melted that coin down, the metal itself wouldn't be worth 10 rupees, no way. But that exact gap between face value and intrinsic value, that's exactly what makes our everyday small-scale transactions run so efficiently. And that brings us to a truly mind-blowing concept, fiat money. See, back in the day, banknotes were convertible. You could literally walk in and exchange them for actual physical gold, held by a bank or a goldsmith. But today, we rely entirely on inconvertible paper money. There is absolutely no secret vault of gold backing it up anywhere. It functions as money solely because of public confidence and the order, or the fiat, of the government. Crazy, right? Now, we do need to make a really sharp distinction between 2 types of money that you and I use all the time. Currency money versus deposit money. So currency money is the everyday paper notes and coins in your hand. That's official legal tender. Deposit money, on the other hand, is bank deposits that you access using things like checks. And here's a really surprising fact. Checks are actually not legal tender. Now, what's really interesting about this is that because a check isn't legal tender, a merchant has the absolute right of refusal. They can look at your check, say, no thanks, and insist on cash instead. And why? Because a check relies entirely on private trust and bank liquidity. I mean, there's no guarantee it won't bounce. But official fiat currency, like a regular note, that is backed by government sanction. Citizens and merchants are legally bound to accept it to settle debts, full stop.
But wait, even within legal tender, there are boundaries. We actually have limited versus unlimited legal tender. Take, for example, smaller denomination coins, like the old 25 paise coins in India. Those were only limited legal tender. That means someone could legally refuse to accept them if you tried to pay a massive debt of over 25 rupees using just those coins. Imagine counting all that. But your standard currency notes and larger coins? Those are unlimited legal tender. They absolutely must be accepted for any amount, no matter how big the debt.
Moving on to Section 2, the 4 functions of money. What does money actually do? To keep this all straight in our minds, there's this classic, really catchy rhyme among economists. Money is a matter of functions 4, a medium, a measure, a standard, a store. It's a fantastic mental anchor for breaking down exactly what this tool accomplishes for society. So let's break that down. The very first and absolutely most critical function is acting as a medium of exchange. See, before money, we relied on the barter system, and that suffered from a massive inefficiency called the double coincidence of wants. Think about it. If I have wheat and I really need shoes, I have to go out and hunt down a shoemaker who just so happens to want a pile of wheat on a Tuesday. It's a total bottleneck. But beyond just exchanging goods, money also acts as a measure of value. It's kind of like how a kilogram measures weight. Money gives us this universal unit of account so we can express prices for absolutely everything. Next up, it serves as a standard of deferred payments. That basically means it lets us calculate future debts, things like loans, salaries, and pensions. And finally, it acts as a store of value. Because money is a perfectly liquid asset, you can save up your purchasing power today, keep it safe and use it in the future, or seamlessly transfer the value of a house sold in one city to buy a brand new one in another.
Now, beyond those primary and secondary jobs, money also handles what economists call contingent functions. Because literally everything is priced in money, it becomes the ultimate economic language. It helps you, the consumer, find the absolute best deals to maximize your utility. It helps businesses figure out how to employ and pay their workers. And, of course, it's the absolute bedrock of our entire modern credit system.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this all builds together. Measuring the money supply, tracking the ecosystem. To really track this massive pool of value, we have to define it very strictly. Money supply is what we call a stock concept, meaning it's measured at one very specific point in time. But here is the key. It only measures the total money held by the public. That means everyday individuals, businesses, and institutions. It explicitly ignores money held by the actual producers of money. So the cash just sitting in the government's treasury or locked up in central bank and commercial bank reserves, that doesn't count towards the active money supply. And how people actually hold that money? Well, that varies wildly around the world. Take a look at this data point. It's pretty surprising. In developing countries where banking habits might be lower, physical cash makes up a massive chunk of the supply. For instance, in India, everyday physical currency makes up about 50% of the total money supply. Now, compare that to the US, where physical currency is a mere 18%. That's because the vast majority of their money supply lives entirely digitally in bank deposits. It's pretty incredible to see the difference in digital adoption globally. So how on earth do governments categorize all these different types of money? Well, the Reserve Bank of India, for example, uses this framework that sort of builds up like a pyramid. Right at the very tip is M1. This is your highly liquid cash and demand deposits that are instantly available. Then, as we move down the pyramid to M2, M3, and finally M4, we start looping in less liquid assets. M2 adds in post office savings deposits, M3 takes M1 and tacks on commercial bank time deposits. And finally, M4 is the total broad supply, which basically adds almost all post office deposits into the mix as well. This sets up a really vital spectrum between narrow money and broad money. Narrow money, that's M1, focuses purely on liquidity. It's the cash you can grab instantly to use as a medium of exchange. But famous economists like Milton Friedman, they always argued that we really need to look at broad money, or M3. Because by including time deposits, M3 actually captures money's vital secondary job as a store of value. And honestly, you absolutely need both metrics to truly understand the health of an economy. Now, underneath all of those M levels sits the big one, M0, also known as high-powered money or the monetary base. This is the absolute core of the whole system. It's made up of the actual currency out in circulation, plus the deposits that commercial banks are required to hold as reserves with the central bank. This high-powered money is created directly by the central bank, and it literally forms the foundation that the entire credit and money supply system is built on. All right, Section 4, the mechanics of inflation, when the system heats up. So what exactly happens when this carefully measured money supply falls totally out of balance with actual economic production? Well, first, we need to bust a major myth right now. Not all inflation is a disaster. Actually, a mild, moderate price rise of around 2 to 3% a year is actively desirable. It's a sign of a healthy, growing economy. It gets people spending, keeps employment up, and drives production. The crucial point is it's only when the overall price level rises persistently, excessively, and over a prolonged period that inflation turns into a real economic disease. When that unhealthy inflation does hit, it usually falls into one of two camps. First up is demand pull inflation. This happens when the money supply grows so fast that we literally have too much money chasing too few goods. If the economy is at full employment, it simply can't pump out enough products to keep up with all that consumer demand, so prices get pulled straight up. But then, on the flip side, we have cost push inflation. And this originates entirely from the supply side, completely independent of how much consumers are actually demanding. With cost-push inflation, producers are essentially forced to hike up their prices just to survive their own escalating costs. This can happen in a few ways. There's wage push, which is when powerful trade unions negotiate much higher pay, spiking labor costs. Then there's profit push, where monopolies use their market dominance to just artificially expand their profit margins. Or you could have sudden supply shocks, like a massive spike in the global price of basic inputs, like oil, which instantly drives up the cost of production for absolutely everything. Wow, we've covered some incredible ground today. We've gone from uncovering the fact that your paper money has literally zero real intrinsic value to tracking how it circulates, right up to the massive economic forces that can erode its worth through inflation, which leaves us with one provocative question to ponder. If money is ultimately just a system of government trust and economic functions, exactly how secure is the purchasing power of the wallet sitting in your pocket right now? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning how the world around you really works.